The stars looked beautiful from the observation deck of the Tempest Valiant, but Captain Riker Hayes had no time to admire them. His face was set, jaw clenched, eyes hard as steel. He wasn't just any captain. He was the last hope of Earth, the man chosen to carry humanity's final warning across the galaxy. They'd crossed a line. The Zalari Dominion, tall, serpent-eyed beings with psychic weaponry and a sick obsession with control, had destroyed 3 of Earth's outposts last week. No warning, no mercy, just silence, and then debris floating in the void. Riker stood alone at the edge of the glass dome, the Earth barely visible behind the glowing blue clouds of Jupiter. His knuckles turned white as he gripped the railing. Every fiber of his body wanted to lash out, to scream into the black that they'd pushed humanity too far. But this mission wasn't about emotion. It was about making damn sure the galaxy understood the consequences. "Message payloads ready," said Lieutenant Sarah, a short-haired, sharp-tongued woman who had saved Riker's life more times than he could count. She stepped beside him, her voice low. "You still want to say it yourself?" "Of course I do," Riker muttered. "They need to see a human's face when the words come." The message was already programmed, broadcast ready in all languages, across all networks, ready to be hijacked onto any alien frequency they could reach. It wasn't a plea. It was a final notice. He turned and marched down the corridor, past rows of armed soldiers and humming engines. Everyone aboard knew what this meant. If the Zalari attacked again, Earth would answer not with war, but with extinction-level retaliation. Riker stepped into the holochamber, a dark sphere lit only by the green, blinking console. The AI pinged, awaiting his command. "Begin record," he said. The camera buzzed to life, scanning his face. He took a slow breath. "This is Captain Riker Hayes of the Earth Defense Coalition," he began. "This message is for the Zalari High Council and all species allied with their aggression." He leaned in slightly, voice calm, controlled, deadly. "We have tolerated your attacks. We've watched our colonies burn, our families vanish into stardust. We have buried our dead in silence. No more." His tone shifted, a quiet fury leaking through every word. "Humanity is not the child species you think we are. You confuse compassion with weakness. You mistake patience for fear. But let me be clear. One more strike, one more unprovoked assault, and we wipe you from history." The silence that followed seemed louder than any scream. "This isn't a threat. It's a promise. We have weapons you haven't even imagined, and we've never wanted to use them. But if forced, we will end you." The camera blinked off. The message was locked in. Sarah stared at him with a mix of fear and admiration. "Was that dramatic enough?" he asked her dryly. She nodded slowly. "Dramatic enough to make the stars tremble." But Riker knew this wasn't over. Not even close. The Zalari didn't fear words. They respected only strength. And Riker had a gut feeling that before long, he'd have to show them exactly what humanity could do. And deep in the cold dark of space, something moved. Something Zalari. The ship's lights dimmed briefly as the Tempest Valiant jumped to silent mode, a defensive protocol used when a high-level threat might be nearby. Riker didn't need the warning. He felt it in his bones. Something was coming. Sarah's voice crackled through his calm. "Captain, we've picked up a shadow on the long-range scanner. It's cloaked, but it's following us. Same trajectory for the last 40 minutes. Riker stormed up to the command deck, every footstep echoing like a countdown. "It's them," he said flatly. "Zalari Scout." The crew went quiet. No one needed to ask how he knew. The Zalari never responded to messages. They stalked first, attacked second. then denied it ever happened. "Raise shields, silent pattern. No energy spikes," he ordered. "We're not giving them a reason to pull the trigger. Yet." Commander Enoch, the ship's tactical lead, turned from his console. "Sir, you really think they're testing us, seeing how we respond to the message?" Riker gave a short nod. "They're not afraid. Not yet. They're watching, analyzing, waiting to see if we'll back our words with fire." Sarah leaned in, her voice quieter. "You think they'll call our bluff?" "It's not a bluff." And it wasn't. Riker had seen what humanity had hidden under the ice of Europa. He'd stood inside the core of the silent sun weapon buried on Pluto, an ancient satellite built not for defense, but annihilation. The kind of weapon you activate only once, and only if you're willing to erase an entire species from existence. The Zalari thought they were the apex, but Earth had grown tired of being underestimated. "Let them follow," he said, his voice calm again. "We're heading to the drift line." Sarah's head snapped up. "You mean the old battleground?" Riker nodded. "Exactly. Let them see what we're willing to revisit. Let them feel the ghosts of their own dead." The drift line was a floating graveyard, remnants of the first human Zalari war a century ago. Thousands of ships frozen in silence, wreckage circling a dead moon like vultures. Both sides had lost too much there. Neither side had ever gone back. Until now. "Plot a course," he said. "Let the Zalari see we're not afraid of memory." As the Tempest Valiant cruised through the void, the silence outside the hull thickened. The distant stars seemed dimmer here, as if mourning. As they broke into the outer edge of the drift line, Sarah gasped. "God," she whispered. Fields of broken ships floated ahead, human and alien wreckage twisted together like dead lovers, scorched metal, frozen bodies, a drifting flag, its colors faded but still visible. The Earth Defense emblem. They weren't just entering a battlefield. They were entering a tomb. "Activate external cams," Riker said. "Make sure the Zalari see this feed." The live visuals would now be part of their open broadcast. If the Zalari were watching, and they always were, they'd understand exactly what humanity was willing to remember, and what they were prepared to repeat. As the ship moved deeper into the wreckage, a low hum started to rise from the comms. Static, warped signals, voices that didn't belong. Sarah's eyes darted. "Sir, we're picking up something weird, not a language, almost like a recording loop, but twisted." Riker stepped forward, listening. His blood went cold. It was humans screaming. Recorded screams from the First War, played back over and over, distorted by time and interference. The Zalari were sending a message of their own. "They're trying to break us with our own memories," he said. "They think fear still lives here." Sarah looked at him. "Does it?" Riker looked back out at the graveyard of ships. Then his hand balled into a fist. "Number." But something else does. He turned away from the window and gave the order. "Arm the EMP cannons, launch recon drones, and prepare the dead protocol." Enoch stiffened. "You sure about that, Captain?" Riker's voice was like stone. "If they want to play games in the dark, we show them that humanity owns the shadows." Outside, in the silent cold of space, the Zalari ship finally uncloaked. The Zalari vessel drifted into full view, sleek, silver, with razor-like wings that shimmered with a liquid glow. It looked almost elegant, like a predator in no rush to strike. But Riker knew better. That ship was armed with weapons that didn't just destroy, they erased. Whole cities had vanished under Zalari bombardment, their molecular signatures scrambled into nothing. Enemy vessel has assumed passive stance, Enoch reported, his fingers flying over the controls. No weapons lock, no transmissions, just watching. Riker narrowed his eyes. They want to know if we'll flinch. Let's show them what we've become. He tapped his wrist pad. Initiate dead protocol, blackout mode. Prep the drones for ghost assault. Sarah turned, stunned. We're activating dead protocol this early? Yes, Riker said. We're not here to fight. We're here to haunt. Dead protocol wasn't about brute force. It was psychological warfare born from human desperation during the First Zalari War. It was fear weaponized. The protocol activated every stealth drone, every holographic projector, every scrap of psychological manipulation they had. Ships would appear where there were none. Voices would whisper in enemy comms. Ghostly images of dead soldiers would float through the wreckage. It was madness, engineered. And it worked. Within minutes, the space around the Tempest Valiant transformed. Dozens of phantom vessels shimmered into existence, holograms crafted from data pulled straight from old war records. The Zalari would see the ghosts of their past, their own ships now seemingly revived, and hunting them. We've got contact, Sarah said suddenly, her voice sharp. The Zalari ship just deployed countermeasures. They're trying to scan us, but the ghosts are interfering. Riker gave a cold smile. Good. Let them waste their energy chasing shadows. Then came the sound no one wanted to hear. A low-pitched chime that rattled the air like a warning bell. Sir, Enoch shouted. They just locked a graviton cannon on us. This isn't a drill. They're escalating. Riker didn't hesitate. Turn us. Face them head on. Power weapons, but don't fire. Let them see we're not afraid to stare death in the eyes. The ship pivoted in silence, engines humming as the Tempest Valiant aimed its nose directly at the Zalari vessel. Through the front viewport, Riker could see the enemy ship glowing brighter now, energy gathering along its underbelly. A single wrong move, and this would become a funeral march. But Riker wasn't here to bluff. He turned to Sarah. Patch me through. Visual only. No translation software. I want them to hear my voice exactly as it is. Sarah nodded, hands moving quickly. A soft beep, and then a red light blinked on the console. They were live. Riker stood tall and stared into the lens. This is Captain Riker Hayes, he said, his voice hard, slow, and unforgiving. You've made your move. Now make your choice. He leaned forward. One more strike, and we wipe you from history. He cut the feed without waiting for a response. The bridge went still. The only sound was the soft humming of engines and the hiss of the air recyclers. They waited. 10 seconds. 20. A minute. Then, the Zalari ship's energy signature flickered. Enoch whispered, They're pulling back. The alien vessel began to drift away, engines spooling quietly, its nose tipping down toward the void as if in retreat. No weapons fire, no final taunt, just silence and distance. Sarah let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. We called their bluff. Riker wasn't smiling. Number, they're not done. They're just regrouping. He turned and walked off the bridge, leaving the crew stunned behind him. Because Riker knew something they didn't. That ship wasn't alone, and humanity's final message had just triggered something far worse than retaliation. It had awakened the first wave. Darkness pressed in on all sides as the Tempest Valiant drifted beyond the drift line, farther than any human vessel had dared go since the first contact war. The Ghost Fleet still glimmered faintly behind them, and Riker stood alone in his quarters, studying the blinking red dots that had begun appearing on the star map. 14 signatures, now 15. All headed their way. Not scouts, not cargo vessels, warships, Each one carried the heat signature of a sun reactor, a class of engine used only by the Zolari's elite fleet. Silent, massive, and relentless. He didn't need confirmation. They were prepping for a surgical assault. Strike hard, vanish, wipe out the message. Then vanish the messenger. He tapped a console. Bridge, this is Hayes. Begin silent jump to coordinates I'm transmitting now. Cloak, keep the lights off. Let's disappear. Sarah's voice came back, hushed but steady. Copy that, Captain. Spinning up the core. The ship shuddered lightly as the silent jump drive began humming. It wasn't instantaneous like traditional faster-than-light travel. Silent jumps took time. Slow, hidden, and hard to detect, but safe from most scans. It was a gamble. Either they vanished completely, or became sitting ducks if spotted mid-transition. Riker stared at the blinking dots again. He zoomed in on the lead vessel. Azareth class, one of the same classes that had annihilated Outpost Halcyon. He still remembered the live feed, the silence, then fire. The screams, the flickering image of a boy, maybe 6 years old, clutching a stuffed animal as the screen turned to static. They didn't just want to win. The Zolari wanted to unmake humanity's soul. The intercom beeped again. Captain, Enoch's voice came through this time. We've got a situation. Power spike, not from us, from the wreckage. One of the ghost ships. It's powering up. Riker's spine stiffened. That's impossible. Those ships have been dead for over 100 years. We know, sir, but it's real. Hull integrity stabilizing. Weapons systems going online. Someone's waking them up. Riker sprinted down the corridor to the observation deck. The stars streaked past as the ship silently glided between dimensions. But on the tactical overlay, something horrifying unfolded. The old Earth destroyer Salvation's Reach, a wreck that had once floated dark and empty, now pulsed with life. Then a second, then a third. Dozens of ships, thought long dead, sparked to life as if summoned by the fear that now choked the region. But they weren't broadcasting human signatures. They were speaking Zolari. Sir, Sarah said, wide-eyed beside him, they've found a way to reanimate our war dead. They're hijacking our own ships. No, Riker growled, his voice tight with fury. They're defiling them. Each vessel that came online flew Earth's flag, but broadcast Zolari codes. It was psychological warfare turned grotesque, a desecration of humanity's most sacred loss. They're sending a message, Enoch said grimly. They're telling us our past doesn't even belong to us anymore. Riker's fists clenched. Then we take it back, all of it. The crew was silent, watching as the holographic image of their ancestors' ships twisted under alien control. He issued his order quietly but firmly. Begin overwrite. Launch virus drones. I want every resurrected hull disabled. If it doesn't shut down, we vaporize it. Sir, Sarah said cautiously, these are our own ships. Some of them still have recorded logs. Personal messages from soldiers, family archives. They're not ours anymore, Riker said. Not while they're in the hands of monsters. Outside, the Tempest Valiant's belly opened, and a swarm of sleek black drones zipped out like hornets. Each one locked onto a corrupted vessel and began uploading a specially designed virus, a digital ghost killer, built to shut down enemy reanimation software. Some ships flickered and died instantly. Others resisted. One of the ships, honor-bound, a battleship lost during the war's final battle, turned toward the Tempest Valiant, its weapons charging. Fire, Riker said coldly. Twin beams of white-hot plasma tore through space, slicing the vessel in half. The explosion was silent, but the crew felt it in their bones. Humanity had just destroyed its own dead. Riker didn't flinch, because this wasn't just a battle anymore. This was a cleansing, and he had a feeling it was only the beginning. The bridge of the Tempest Valiant was silent now, not out of fear, but out of respect. On the main screen, what remained of the honor-bound drifted in two glowing halves, cooling in the void. No one said a word. Even Sarah's fingers moved more slowly over her console, as if the moment deserved stillness. Riker stood at the front of the bridge, staring at the wreckage. He remembered reading about the honor-bound as a cadet, a ship that had refused to retreat, even when outnumbered 10-1 during the final battle over Mars. The last transmission from her captain was still taught at the Academy. As long as Earth breathes, we do not run. And now Riker had ordered its destruction. Enoch finally broke the silence. VirusNet is holding, Captain. 17 enemy-occupied vessels disabled. 5 destroyed. The rest are retreating or dark again. Any trace of the original logs? Riker asked. Sarah shook her head. Not a single message survived. They wiped everything before activating. Every soldier's last word, every family message. They made sure we'd never recover it. Riker's jaw tightened. Then this isn't just war. It's cultural erasure. They're not just trying to kill us, they're trying to make it so we were never here. He turned towards the comms unit and stabbed the console with his finger. Patch me to Earth Command. Secure line, full encryption. It took a moment. Then a small screen blinked to life, showing the face of Admiral Lyra Stone. Her silver hair was tied back, her face hardened from years of battles most of the world never even knew happened. She didn't waste time on greetings. Captain Hayes, status? Riker didn't flinch. We engaged a forward Zalari unit. No direct fire, but they deployed psychological warfare tactics, reanimated our ghost fleet, hijacked the honor-bound. We responded. Lyra's face darkened. You fired on our own. They weren't ours anymore. A long pause. I've authorized dead protocol escalation, Riker continued, and I'm formally requesting activation of Project Ashwake. On the other side of the transmission, Lyra went still. Her lips parted slightly, but she said nothing for a long moment. Even through the screen, Riker could feel the weight settle over her shoulders. You're asking to deploy a Class Omega extinction device, she said flatly. You understand what that means? Riker nodded once. I do. So do the Zalari. They're sending more, and they're not here to fight us. They're here to erase you, Lyra finished. Riker's voice lowered. If we don't strike first, we won't get to strike at all. Lyra studied him with tired eyes. Then she leaned back and gave a slow nod. Authorization granted. Ashwake 7 is en route. ETA, 36 hours. It's in your hands now. The line went dead. Riker didn't move for a moment. The bridge crew stared at him. Ashwake 7? Enoch asked. That's not a bluff? No, Riker said. It's not. Project Ashwake was humanity's final creation. The ultimate deterrent. Not a bomb. Not a virus. Something worse. It was a weapon designed to erase planetary biosignatures on a quantum level. Any trace of culture, language, architecture, gone. Even memory particles scattered. It wouldn't just kill the Zalari. It would make it so their planets had never existed. And now, for the first time in history, it was being sent into battle. Sarah looked shaken. We use that thing. We become the very monsters they claim we are. Riker turned to her, voice soft but certain. Number, we become what we must to survive. The stars outside began to dim as the ship passed into deeper space, the kind of space that wasn't charted anymore. Even the AI refused to speak here. Then the warning siren flared. Unknown ship detected. No Zalari signature, no human. It's something else. Riker's eyes snapped to the screen. Out of the darkness, a structure emerged. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a station. It was something older, vast, covered in markings that pulsed with unnatural light. It looked ancient, alien, but not Zalari. Sarah whispered, "What the hell is that?" Riker took a step forward. His chest felt cold. "That might be what the Zalari are really afraid of." The structure drifted slowly into view, blacker than space itself except for the lines of pulsing red that snaked across its surface. It was bigger than any ship Riker had ever seen, too massive to be built by mortal hands, and far too old to still be functioning. Sarah's voice trembled slightly. "That thing isn't on any map, Captain. No registry, no data fragments in the archives. We've never seen anything like it." Riker's eyes locked on the central tower of the thing. It was shaped like a monolith, surrounded by massive rings that rotated independently, humming with silent, terrible power. He felt something stir in his gut. Not fear exactly, but instinct. The same feeling a man gets when he walks into a graveyard at midnight and realizes something is still watching him from the shadows. "Run a full spectral scan," he ordered. "Passive only. Don't ping it. I don't want to wake whatever's sleeping inside." Enoch already had the results coming in. His voice was tense. "Sir, this thing's ancient, possibly pre-Zalari. It's emitting a decaying radiation signature we've only ever seen in one other place." "Where?" "The silent sun on Pluto," he said grimly. "But this is older. Way older." That was impossible. The silent sun had been the last resort weapon Earth found buried during the Mars terraforming era. No one had built it. No one claimed it. It was just there, waiting. And now here was its twin, or worse, its creator. "What are the Zalari doing near this?" Sarah whispered, watching the data stream. Riker didn't answer. His mind was already racing ahead. The Zalari didn't retreat from the message earlier because they were afraid of humans. They retreated because they didn't want this, whatever it was, to be disturbed. "This isn't about us anymore," Riker muttered. "They're not trying to erase us to win a war. They're trying to keep us quiet because we're too close to something." He walked quickly to the comms console. "Prep a drone. I want eyes on that structure. Full analysis. Send it in slow." The launch was quiet. The probe, barely the size of a coffin, drifted toward the dark monolith, its cameras feeding back images in real time. Strange carvings covered the hull. Circular patterns, star maps, even figures of creatures with too many limbs and blank, eyeless faces. Sarah's face turned pale as she zoomed in. These aren't carvings, they're instructions, a warning. Before Riker could reply, the feed snapped to static. "Signal lost," Enoch barked. "The probe's gone. No explosion, no interference, it just vanished." The bridge went deathly still. Then the whisper came. Not through the speakers, not through the ship. It came inside them. A voice, not words, but something deeper, pressed against their minds. Riker staggered, clutching the console as a sudden weight crushed his thoughts. He saw flashes. Burning planets, stars going dark, a ring of light swallowing entire systems. The voice, if it could be called that, was old. Older than war, older than life as they knew it. "You speak of extinction like you understand it." Riker gasped for breath. Blood trickled from Sarah's nose. Enoch collapsed against the wall, eyes wide, staring at nothing. "You threaten annihilation with weapons of fire. We end civilizations with silence, with forgetting." Then it was gone. The pressure lifted. Riker stumbled upright, his body soaked in sweat. Sarah, trembling, whispered, "That wasn't the Zalari." "No," Riker said. "That's what they're afraid of. They've been trying to bury this." Enoch blinked slowly, his voice hollow. "Sir, what do we do?" Riker turned back to the stars. The Ashwick device was still on its way. The Zalari fleet would return, but now they were in the middle of something far worse than war. "We change the mission," he said quietly. "We're not just fighting for Earth anymore." Sarah stared at him. "Then for what?" "For memory," he said. "For the right to be remembered at all." Outside the viewport, the monolith pulsed once, like a heartbeat, and Riker knew humanity hadn't delivered its final message yet. But soon, it would. The darkness outside the Tempest Valiant had changed. It wasn't just cold or empty, it felt aware now, as if the stars themselves were watching with unseen eyes. Riker stood silently at the edge of the bridge, his face tight, lips pressed into a line, still hearing the echo of that voice in his mind. We end civilizations with silence, with forgetting. He'd never felt smaller than he did now, not even during his first drop onto the burning soil of Vesper Prime. This wasn't war. This wasn't even about survival anymore. It was something older, a conflict beneath history itself. And yet, he didn't flinch. He turned to his crew. "We're changing course. Plot a return jump to Earth orbit. I want us there before Ashwake 7 arrives." Sarah blinked. "We're not going to strike the Zalari?" "No," he said. "Not yet. We're bringing the message home first. Because if we're facing something that can erase us, Earth needs to know." Enoch looked skeptical. "You think Earth Command will listen? After you asked them to drop an extinction weapon?" Riker's voice was steel. "They'll listen, because I'm going to put it in the open. Every channel. No more hiding." The crew exchanged glances. Going public with information like this, especially about Project Ashwake or the monolith, was treason. But Riker didn't care about rules anymore. He cared about making sure the human race knew what it was truly up against. The moment they entered jump alignment, the lights flickered. Not from engine failure. This was different. Colder. A hum that came from inside the bones. "Captain?" Sarah's voice was shaky now. "We're not alone anymore." The monolith was moving, not drifting, not rotating, moving. A slow, deliberate shift as the rings around it accelerated, glowing brighter with a dull red light that seeped into the fabric of space like blood into water. Then a rift opened beneath it. Pitch black, not space, not void, something deeper. "Is that a wormhole?" Enoch asked. "No," Riker said, barely above a whisper. "It's a memory well." He didn't know how he knew, but he did. They don't just erase civilizations. They trap them, pull them into whatever that is, a place where no time exists, no past, no names, just nothing. As the rift expanded, signals across the bridge lit up in chaos. "Zalari fleet incoming," Sarah called out. 10 ships minimum. They're not firing, but they're heading toward the monolith." "What?" Enoch looked confused. "They're going to it?" "They're not attacking," Riker muttered. "They're trying to stop it." The truth landed like a thunderclap. The Zalari weren't humanity's exterminators. They were its keepers. They'd destroyed outposts not to silence Earth, but to delay it. To keep humanity from finding this thing too soon, because the moment someone found the monolith, the moment someone disturbed it, it began to wake. "We were never the target," Riker whispered. "We were the trigger." On screen, the lead Zalari ship broke formation, flashing signals in a pattern never used before. "Translate that now," Riker ordered. Sarah worked frantically. Then the translation appeared. Human, we tried to protect your timeline. You would not listen. Now it sees you. The rift pulsed again, growing wider. A long shadow reached from it, stretching like smoke, then solidifying into a shape, a towering figure of pure darkness with no eyes, no mouth, just the suggestion of a face. It didn't move, but it watched. Not just the Tempest Valiant, not just the Zalari. It was watching humanity. A voice rippled through every screen, every device, every neuron. Your history is loud, your defiance remembered. So we come to silence. Alarms blared. Every system on the ship began shutting down one by one. Sarah screamed. They're infecting the core. They're erasing our nav, our logs, us. Riker forced himself forward. Divert all power to backup storage. Transmit our data, Earth history, fleet records, everything, to the deep archive satellites. But they'll erase it, Enoch yelled. Not before we fire it into deep space, Riker snapped. Even if we're wiped, the truth survives somewhere. The crew moved like lightning, but systems were crashing fast. Riker turned to the comms. If this is our end, he said into the open channel, then let this be our real final message. He stared at the watching void. We are human, and we remember. The shadow figure pulsed once more. Then everything went white. There was no light, no sound, no time, just silence. Then, breath. Riker's lungs burned as he gasped awake, choking on the dry, recycled air. His body was strapped into a med rig, still shaking. Everything around him was flickering, emergency lights pulsing red, warning sirens muted. He turned his head and saw Sarah slumped beside him, eyes closed, pale but breathing. Enoch was leaning over a console, blood crusted at his temple, face gaunt like he hadn't slept in years. How long was I out? Riker croaked. Enoch looked at him like he was seeing a ghost. 4 days. We thought you weren't coming back. Riker pushed himself up. His limbs were heavy, his chest a furnace. What happened? The monolith, the shadow. Sarah stirred at his voice. She sat up slowly, her voice hoarse. They didn't erase us. Not fully. Not yet. Riker's memory came flooding back. The voice, the rift, the being that called itself Silence. It hadn't just attacked them, it had tried to erase their existence. But something stopped it. He staggered to the bridge, the crew trailing behind. The main screen was cracked, but still operational. Outside, space was calm again. The monolith, gone. The Zalari ships, vanished. But Earth, still there, still breathing. Status, Riker barked. Enoch wiped his face, pulling up the reports. We lost everything but one core backup. The deep archive satellites. One made it out. The other was corrupted mid-transmission. Sarah added. Ashwake 7 was recalled before deployment. Earth Command saw the transmission before it hit blackout. Riker, they heard you, all of it. He let that sink in. The mission hadn't been to win a war, it had been to warn humanity, and they'd succeeded. Riker slumped into the captain's chair, staring at the stars. The monolith hadn't just come for blood, it came to erase legacy, and when it failed, it disappeared into whatever dimension it called home. But it had left a mark behind. A single line of data carved into their corrupted memory banks, left like a whisper. We see you now. Sarah read it aloud, quiet. That means they're not done, doesn't it? Riker nodded slowly. Number. But now, we're not unprepared. A new alert pinged across the screen. Incoming transmission. Source, Earth Command. Admiral Lyra Stone appeared, pale and tight-lipped, her eyes sunken. "Captain Hayes," she began, "you've cost us every protocol, every chain of command, and revealed black-budget projects the world wasn't ready to know existed." Riker waited, expression unreadable. "But," she continued, "you also may have saved the entire human timeline. The Senate has issued a global disclosure order. We're no longer hiding the war. We're preparing for it. All of us." She paused. "And we need leaders." The screen flicked off. Riker turned to his crew. "You heard her. We're not soldiers anymore." Sarah blinked. "Then what are we?" Riker looked at the stars. "We're archivists of existence, keepers of memory. If they want silence, we answer with truth." Over the next few hours, the Tempest Valiant began transmitting everything it had left: recordings, testimony, genetic logs, history files, into deep space, encoded in a lattice of radiation signatures that even the shadow entity couldn't delete easily. A backup of humanity, scattered like seeds into the void. They knew it wasn't over. But Earth was waking up. Cities began installing planetary archives. Civilian agencies turned into memory vaults. Children were taught history not just to learn, but to protect it. The shadow had come to erase, and in doing so, made humanity more permanent than it had ever been before. 1 week later, Riker stood in a rebuilt memorial on Mars, beneath a steel statue of the honor-bound. He touched the plaque and read the inscription: "To those who died so we could remember." He exhaled. He didn't know when the monolith would return, or what form the next silence would take. But he knew one thing: humanity's message was no longer a threat. It was a vow. We are loud, we are flawed, but we do not forget. And if they came again, they would remember humanity, whether they wanted to or not.